Hey, welcome to Unchurched with Pastor Todd. It's a beautiful night when I'm recording this sermon. We have come to spring, and the city that I currently live in is looking better than it looks in the off season because the trees are coming back to life. And I don't know if you can see the sun, if it's lighting me at all in here. I know we have these lights, but it's just a beautiful day outside. And I said to Devo, my videographer extraordinaire, I said, bro, this is a great day to preach the gospel. So I hope that you're feeling good, and really just want to say thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate you spending this time with me. I'm just so thrilled to see so many people watching each week. I just got a notification from YouTube that we've had 5,000 hours of watch time since we launched this channel. And that's 5,000 hours of people like you hearing the story of Jesus in what is hopefully an inspiring and encouraging way. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing these messages with your friends when you feel like it might encourage them. And thank you for partnering with me as we try to get these in front of as many people as possible. If you'd like to join that team, I'm always looking for more. You can become a patron. Patreon.com/unchurched is where you'll find me. Also, feel free to send me an email sometime. I'd love to interact with you, toddcandelon@gmail.com, or just leave a comment below, and I try to respond to all of those. We're in a series called What He Said, where we're exploring what Jesus said about life, God, and the meaning of everything. And today we come to a theme that is near and dear to my heart and to my kids' heart. Today, what He said about greatness, or perhaps we should say true greatness. Achieving greatness is a colloquialism in my family. Since my kids were just like little, I tried to raise them to achieve greatness in everything they do. I don't know where I got the phrase from. My parents certainly raised me to do my best in every context. I was actually joking with my buddy before this that I'm a kind of either or person. I either don't do something, or if I'm going to do it, I tend to do it all the way. And I learned that from my folks. But the idea of achieving greatness, of trying to be truly great at everything you do, is something that I've really emphasized in my immediate family. And so my kids, it's like a thing. They'll say like, I'm achieving greatness, Dad. How was your day? I'm achieving greatness. How'd your test go? I achieved greatness. I achieved greatness. I think a life lived in the pursuit of greatness is going to be, at the very least, a more interesting kind of life, and probably a more fun kind of life. It'll definitely be a harder kind of life. I do think it is easier to coast. It is easier to not try so hard. My dandelions are an example. Last spring, I excised at least 5,000 dandelions. No joke. I have a very big yard. So I excised them all by hand. I didn't use any chemicals. I literally, on my hands and knees, eventually just sitting on my butt, kind of scooching around with a Rubbermaid by my side, like excised all those dandelions from the lawn. My lawn looked beautiful. And then this year, we've come to spring again, and there are some dandelions that came back. I'm like, where did they come from? I took every single one of these dandelions out of the lawn. So I achieved greatness last spring, but what am I going to do this spring? So I actually just mowed the lawn for the first time last week. And I said to Nikki, my wife, I'm like, I'm going to have to achieve greatness and pull out all those new dandelions. It can be tiring to constantly be working to achieve greatness in everything you do. But hey, let me commend it to you. If you've been coasting, let today be your clarion call. Let today be your invitation to find that spark, find that passion, find that joy that used to drive you, and use that to return to trying to achieve greatness in everything you do. Yes, I know, Yoda said, there is no try, there's only do. But I don't think he was totally right. I think sometimes, even in the trying, there is much beauty to be found. So let's see what Jesus had to say about achieving true greatness. As usual, he's a bit of a dissident, our Jesus. He's a bit of a revolutionary. He's a bit of a counterculture kind of guy. So we're in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 33 through 37. Quick little section. Famous section. So he's heading back to Capernaum, which is where he lived in Galilee as an adult. So he's heading back to Capernaum with his disciples, and having come in the house, he kept on asking them, "What along the road were you disputing about?" But they kept on being quiet, for with one another they had discussed along the road who was the greatest. And having sat down, he called the 12 and says to them, "If as is the case, anyone is desiring to be first, let him be last of all and a servant of all. And having taken a little child, he stood him in their midst. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said to them, whoever receives one of such little children in my name receives me. And whoever receives me does not receive me, but the one who sent me. So good old Jesus turning the concept of greatness on its head, and it's very challenging. So from what he said about greatness, we get a few takeaway points that I hope as you apply to your life, you'll see your life beginning to change in not just a radical way, but in a way that leads to true greatness. True greatness, first point, is honest. It's honest, it's not pretending. Why is it honest? Because he knows what you're thinking anyway, so you might as well be honest. We get this out of verse 33. They're heading home to Capernaum. He gets to the house. Tradition holds that he lived in the house of Peter, eventually St. Peter. And in Capernaum to this day, there is a ruin. It's on kind of the east side of Capernaum, that they think would have been Peter's house. The reason they think it would have been his house is because you can see from the foundation that it was a typical first century house, but then you can see above that the ruins of a church that was built above the house. So historians think, well, if they built a church there, it was probably a pretty significant spot, and the most significant spot in Capernaum would have been the house where Jesus stayed while he was there, the house of Simon Peter. What I love most about that location, which is why it makes sense to me that the master might have lived there, is that it's literally a stone's throw from the lake. So he could have for sure woken up in the morning and walked less than 100 yards into the water for his morning dip. So he's headed back to Capernaum with his disciples. He hears them chattering on the way, and he's onto them. He knows what they are saying. They get into the house, and he says to them, hey guys, what were you arguing about on the road? I don't think he's asking them because he doesn't know. I think he's asking them because he does. I think he knows what they were talking about. And most importantly, I think he knows what was in their hearts. What were you guys talking about? And of course, they're embarrassed. They don't want to admit it. We'll get to that in just a second. But what were they talking about? They were talking about who's the greatest. This leads to a simple question. Why has it always got to be me first? Why has it always got to be you first? Super challenging, right? That's our default setting. Me first is our default setting. We go through our days living as if we are the most important person, most important factor, most important being in every single room. It's important for us to be honest about that. I think we can get into big trouble as Christian people. We can get into big trouble as a movement when we project something to the world around us that is fake, that is false. So to pretend like you're all magnanimous and all egalitarian and everything's fine, and, no, you go first. No, you go first. I think it's healthy for us to be honest about our hopes and our fears and our motivations. I think somebody would find it very refreshing if you actually, in a moment of conflict, stopped, apologized, said, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to, I'm worried about my job, and I'm trying to get ahead. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about my retirement. I'm worried about my future. I have bills that are strangling me, and so that's making me fairly self-focused at work. I'm really sorry. It's not even really personal, but it's real for me. So many people, that is their lived experience. I know that has been the case in my life many, many times. And the fight for survival is so real that you almost don't even notice it after a while. And so the call to honesty here, I think, might be very refreshing. To just admit it, to be like, yeah, touche, Jesus, you're onto me. I am kind of looking out for number one. So let's be honest. True greatness is honest. It's also, point number two here, humble. True greatness is humble. So he asked them what they were talking about, and in verse 34, they kept on being silent, for with one another they had discussed along the road who was the greatest. I love these guys. I've said it before, the imbecilic disciples remind me of me. I can totally see myself being just like these guys. I'm the greatest. No, 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 I'm the greatest. Aren't we just like this? Here's my big take-home point. You're welcome. We're all basically still in kindergarten. Isn't it true? I've said this to my kids. We're talking about high school culture and popularity in high school. I was even talking to my littlest daughter just this morning, driving her home from swimming. And I was saying to her, like, high school popularity is a construct, right? Like, that it doesn't translate into your real adult life. She's like, I know, Dad, but still, right now, it's difficult. It's hard to take. I was like, I know, honey. And she was like, no, you don't. It's like, yes, I was in high school once too, 1,000,000 years ago. I was there. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to jostle for position, to jostle for popularity, to jostle for power, to jostle for control. Me first. Me first. Let's just take a minute, because we've been invited by the text to do so, to admit that me first is always very close to our heart. We always want to be noticed. My wife's really good at this. She always reminds us when we find ourselves in moments of conflict that, remember, that these people at the end of the day just want to be loved. It's really true. Most people just want to be noticed. They want to be loved. They want to be acknowledged. They're afraid of scarcity. There's all kinds of fears that are driving them. And they just want to be part of the pack. They just want to be part of the herd. They just want to be part of the club. They just want to be part of the family. And their insecurity is what causes them to act in ways that are unkind, selfish, and which seem to be trying to, put you last to their first place. Me first. Me first. I'm the greatest. No, I'm the greatest. So if you want to be great, you need to grow up. That's your take-home point. I love this sermon. Grow up already. And I'm saying this to myself. In some ways I still act like a 14-year-old. As it's kind of refreshing in my late 40s to be like, there's still some things about me that are like a 17-year-old. But we need to grow up into Christ. This is one of the key teachings of Jesus, that we're on a journey of maturity. And I just want to say, don't receive that in a way that's condemnatory. Give yourself some runway. Know that you got a lot of time to figure this out. I don't think that we figure this out even by the end of our lives. I think that's why eternity is a very long time, because we're going to have a very long time, hallelujah, to keep growing up into the image and likeness of Christ. We're going to have a lot of time, bless the Lord, to keep becoming more and more like Christ. So start that process today. If there's some room for you to grow up, do it. Next time you find yourself in a situation where maturity is called for, embrace it. Next time you find yourself in a situation where you want to act like a teenager, don't. And instead, be the adults in the room, because true greatness is humble. True greatness also embraces the ethics of the upside-down kingdom. I love this, the upside-down kingdom. We get this out of verse 35, where Jesus is very famously turning things on their head. And having sat down, he called the 12 and says to them, if, as is the case, here it is, anyone is desiring to be first, let him be last of all and a servant of all. So it's the opposite. You want to be first, you need to put yourself last. You want to be great, you need to be everybody's slave. Usually the word in the New Testament for servant is slave, doulos. He really means what he says here. It's funny, I saw a funny meme online this week where somebody was talking about the concept of servant leadership. Now, I was mentored in a movement that really emphasized servant leadership, and I think it was really, really helpful and had a huge impact on my life and what I've done with my life and what I haven't done with my life. But the meme was saying, Jesus says, be the servant of all, and we answer, yes, a servant leader. And Jesus is like, no, the servant of all. And we're like, yes, a servant leader. So let's just receive that correction and just go, he says slave. If you want to be great, you need to be the servant of all. That is so difficult because I think if we're honest, we're not even the servant of anybody, let alone the servant of all. So let's just remember that this is an invitation into life, right? That's what the way of Jesus is. It's an invitation into life. It's not a condemnatory set of rules meant to make you feel bad about yourself. It's an invitation into new life. So next time you find yourself in a situation where you have the opportunity to put yourself last, just try it. Try it out. Even if you're skeptical about this, you're like, I'm not sure if this is actually going to work. Try it. Well, at this point, what do you got to lose? Try something new. Instead of always trying to go to the front of the line, Take the low place. Instead of always trying to promote yourself, promote somebody else. Instead of always trying to bend the situation to your benefit, bend the situation to the benefit of someone else. You need to give your life away if you want to be great. If you want to be great, remember the opposite game that Jesus introduced. If you want to be great, remember that Jesus' kingdom is an upside down kingdom. And I think he really means it. I don't think there's any way out of this. And I think, I want to say I know this from my own lived experience because I'm such a bonehead, but I tend to think that the Lord will continue to bring hard knocks into your life until you finally give up and learn to take the low place and to let him promote you. Boy, that's been a hard journey for me. I don't want to tell you stories about what I was like as a teenager, but you get what I'm saying. Let's together learn to embrace the upside down kingdom, because Jesus, he does things differently. Get a load of this in verses 36 through 37. He gets a little kid, puts him on his lap, hugs him, and says, "Whoever receives one of such little children in my name receives me, and whoever receives me does not receive me, but the one who sent me." So what's Jesus doing here? We come here to the fourth point. He is illustrating to us that true greatness embraces the weak, which is a complete anachronism in our culture today. It's the complete opposite of, robber baron capitalism. It's the complete opposite of, celebrity culture. It's the complete opposite of social media culture that does everything it can to fake its way to greatness, right? You know about this. You know about these people who buy their followers. You know these people who rent a car to make it look like it's their car. I watched there's a cool documentary on this on Netflix that actually talks about a series of kids who were kind of made into fake celebrities, and it's unbelievable the lengths to which they go to build their follower base. And the point is that it's, of course, not isolated to these few people who were doing this for the sake of the documentary, but this is common practice when it comes to manufacturing a fake online presence. And all of that is about trying to make yourself great. Jesus here says true greatness embraces the weak. He says, listen, anyone who embraces one of these little children receives me. And if you receive me, you receive not me, but the one who sent me. You receive the Father. So when Jesus says you receive the Father, what he's really saying is you will receive what you're looking for. He's saying you will find the harbor of your soul's longing. And he says the key to that is embracing those who are weak and of low status, because that's what a child was in culture in Jesus' day. Particularly women and children, and of course slaves, had no status, no legal status in Jewish culture and Roman culture at the time. And so for him to say, to receive a child, to prefer a child, to give a place of honor to one of these weak, no status ones, is how you achieve greatness. It's how you receive Jesus, and not just Jesus, but the Father who sent him. Jesus is really inviting us to do something very countercultural. If you want more Jesus, you need to be more welcoming of those who have nothing to offer you. So I was thinking about this as I drove here to preach this sermon. I was thinking, how can I make this tangible for these people? And I thought, now I know this may sound lame to you. It's just an example, so, take it or leave it for whatever it's worth. But I thought, if you have, and this is literally, I get it, this is literally such a baby step. If you're already very far along the journey of, receiving those from whom you have nothing to gain, then you'll find this, almost pathetic by comparison. But if you haven't done anything in your life to receive those from whom you have nothing to gain, this might be a very good first baby step. So, volunteering. I just want to give you something practical that you can do. If you're like, whoa, that got to me, that was hitting me in my heart, I feel like God was talking to me, I feel like I really need to try that. Try volunteering. Why volunteering? Well, because when you volunteer, you literally are receiving nothing in return. Yes, people would tell you you receive a sense of satisfaction, you receive a sense of well-being, sometimes you receive relational or emotional equity in return, but you don't receive anything really tangible. I've been volunteering as a football coach for, how long now? Jordan would have been 10 when he started, so he's 22 now, so 12. So 12 years I've been volunteering as a football coach. First in a junior football league in the city that I used to live, and then now in my current place, I've been volunteering as a high school football coach. And we're just right now in the middle of junior football. So in spring we do junior football, and then in the fall we do senior football, and man, is it ever a huge commitment of time. Particularly in the fall, we practice every single day. We have to be at practice. It starts at 10 to 4, and we don't finish till, we're supposed to finish by 5:30, but we're typically not out of there till 6. So, it's a good 2-hour commitment every single day. So times 5, that's 10 hours a week. And then we have game day. And so on game day, there's another, by the time you get to the stadium, play the game, hang out with the boys afterwards, that's another 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours. So you're about, 10, 15 hours a week, sometimes more. If you think about that, you're like, I'm a working person, my schedule's hectic, and I'm volunteering 15 hours a week on top of that. It's a big commitment, and you get nothing tangible in return. Now, I would never say that over the years I haven't received anything. I've certainly received all the things I talk about, but no one's paying me. There's not a huge level of acknowledgement beyond the circle of our own coaches who work together and have grown to really care for one another, and that's huge. But, we're not getting accolades, we're not getting noticed in the community. We're not really receiving much in return. And boy, has that ever been life-changing for me. So find a similar context. It doesn't have to be coaching a sport team, but it could be. Hey, my wife actually met one of our neighbors recently. I was just talking with her a little bit about, she's known her, it's not that she met her, but she met her at an event and found out that this lady spends basically all her time volunteering. She's retired and has been for some time, and she serves the various organizations in our community that need people constantly to be there serving. What a wonderful way to do what Jesus says, to embrace the weak, to embrace those of low status, to embrace those who have nothing tangible to give you in return. If you want more Jesus, you need to receive those who are weak and of low status. And of course, the benefit to receiving more of Jesus is that you will receive more of his Father. What Jesus is saying here is that as we embrace those who have nothing to give us in return, we actually receive access to the divine life. That's what it means to receive him and the one who sent him. We actually receive access, imagine it, to the divine life. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty great to me. And next week, what he said about rest.